Good evening, everyone. Today we are going to do a study on business English. Business English. English has become a global language, and we do not know how to use English. And we know how to use English because English has become a global language. We have come to see that without English it is very difficult for us to survive. We cannot survive without English. So it is very important that we learn and understand English. In every steps of life we read English, we study English right from our the time from we are born and we start speaking, we keep our focus on speaking good English, and we always have a tendency to keep on improvising our English. So that is how we see that this is also a place where English needs to be improved. Now when you are in a business section, you are doing business, you see that business is English is playing a very important role, because you are working with various types of people at one particular time. So when you are working with people at various time, what happen is that you need to speak English. So when you are speaking English, you have to you need to improvise with English. Now when we are speaking English or when we are writing English, we make major and basic flaws. Major and basic flaws like we get confused with words. We are totally confused with words. We are in word formation, word partnership. We do not know how to use our words. Now, first thing that comes in level is the grammar. We do not know our grammar very well because we just study grammar for getting particular marks, but we do not learn grammar to improvise our English. Because when we think that speaking English, being in an English, going into English course, we may improve our English, but that is not so. Going to English course, we will start speaking good English, but that is not so, because our English only develops when we practice it in our day-to-day life. When we are practicing it every day, every minute, that is the only time when we have a tendency to develop better English. Otherwise, we don't have a tendency to develop our English well. Now, developing English, we first start with our pronunciation and grammar. Okay, first we start with our grammar, because we think that without grammar, wrong grammatical structure, wrong grammatical sentences make our writing more difficult, may make our writing more complicated. So it is very important that we write proper grammar in every sense, that when we are writing our sentences, when we are writing letters, we learn letter format of the date. Everything plays a very important role, because when we do not follow a grammatical structure well, it creates a major problem. So we don't know our sentences properly, where to use the punctuations properly, which is a direct sentence, which is an indirect sentence, how to use our languages, all these things, and where to use a question mark, and how to form the sentences. We have a general tendency of mixing up sentences, mixing up our tenses. So that is the main time. What happens is that when we fall into a major, when we face major issues at that particular time. So first you should improve our grammar, and grammar is improved only when we practice. Now practice is not practicing for exam, because when we deal with business, this is not a part of our exam. It is a part of a deal that we make during business. So it is important that when we are making, when we are learning English, we should learn practice it daily by speaking and writing. Many times we know that while we are writing and while we are speaking, what happened is that many things do not match properly. So if it is not matching, it becomes a question. So we should learn and write both the things regularly so that it gives us a good base of English. When we form our good base of English, then we should focus on certain areas like word formation. Like, what is word formation? Is that when we are making the words, we see that we see that we can't form words. We are falling short of words. So that is important, because words formation is very necessary, because when we do not form words, it becomes very difficult for us to very difficult for us to know, because there are many compound words like using of suffixes, prefixes, affix. When we are using, like from making a noun to an adjective, then from forming an abstract noun with noun to adjective, adjective to noun. So there are various forms. So how do we change those forms? Only come when we are fully learned with grammar. So that is what verb formation takes place. Many times we make a lot of mistakes with spellings. Our spellings and pronunciations don't go very well. Nowadays, there is a general tendency of practicing, like phonics. Phonics practicing is there. When we practice phonics, what happens is that we generally learn how to pronounce well, and when we are pronouncing it well, it happens so that the pronunciation we are doing while speaking using of phonics help us to modify our pronunciation in a better way. So when we don't modify our pronunciation, don't learn our phonics well, we make mistakes in writing also and speaking also. But learning phonics in business English is not possible, because business English comes at a very higher level. It does not comes at a very lower level. It comes at a very higher level. So when you are learning to speaking, you're learning with business English, what is important is that you should develop your writing skills. You should develop your way of using the phonics. So that is basically a very important point. So you should know your phonics well, and with phonics comes your proper type of writing, writing your English language without making any mistakes in grammar. Now, when you do not make mistakes in grammar, there is also other form, is that phonics is always not related to pronunciation. Suppose the pronunciation of sir, like s and sir, it becomes different. So using of phonics in is not a easy work. So we should learn our phonics for our pronunciation and for our writing of English. But for pronunciation, we know that we can take our pronunciation, because nowadays we have different sites which give us different types of pronunciation skills. So that will generally help us to improve our pronunciation by listening. The more you listen, the more you get your pronunciations clear, and the more you speak, the more you get. That also helps you to develop your pronunciation. Many times what happens, we do not have a habit of speaking. We do not have a habit of speaking with people. We always have a tendency of speaking in our mother tongue. When we are speaking in our mother tongue, it so happens that while speaking English, we mix up our pronunciation with our mother tongue. Our accent of mother tongues coming. We put that our native mother tongue into the English language. So that becomes very difficult. So what happens over here is that we should learn to pronunciation. Our pronunciation increases only when we practice our English very well. Now we have two types of English that has been adopted. One type of English is American English, and the other type of English is British English. So when we are using these two English, we should not mix it up. Either you put into a habit of only one English, or you don't you don't write put that effort of mixing up, because when we mix up, we find that this spelling is easy for us. We put that spelling only. Otherwise, we generally change it out. So what happens is that it is absolutely fine that the pronunciation you follow is either one of the other. So our pronunciation increases when we listen. One is listening and one is speaking. So when you speak more, your pronunciation increases. I am not speaking with somebody who is speaking in mother tongue, but somebody who is speaking in English. So when you speak with somebody in English, you come to know what are the problems that are coming, or what are the problem that takes place. So you develop your pronunciation through English. But the main thing is that do not mix your pronunciation with your native language. When you are mixing your pronunciation with native language, it creates a major drawback. So never mix up. When you are pronunciating, put the pronunciation in one particular language only. Next, when you are forming the words, we do not have a habit of forming the words. We either do a very simple thing of copy pasting our things very fast. So what is important, you know how the suffixes, prefixes are used, what is the noun, pronoun, because we make a lot of repetition. When we make a lot of repetition, then comes the problem. Repetition, while you are writing, if one sentence like my is repeated in every sentence, this is my qualification, this is my order that I am going to take. So when you repeat the word, it becomes boring and monotonous. So it is important that we increase our vocabulary. So when we are increasing our vocabulary, it increases only by reading and writing. So when we are increasing our vocabulary, it is important that we apply those vocabulary only. It is not that we are opening a book, reading the words, and okay, now I have learned new words, I am just keeping it aside. It is not so, because when you are reading the words, when you are increasing your vocabulary, it is also important that you should also see to it that you are making the application well. When we are not making the application well, what happened? Suddenly the use of the words or the application of the language becomes very difficult. So it is important that we speak, or that we use our language well. If we do not use our vocabulary well, and when does the vocabulary comes into being? The vocabulary comes into implication only when there is a tendency of us practicing or applying those vocabulary. How are you going to increase your vocabulary? You are going to increase your vocabulary by reading newspapers, reading magazine, and then marking the words, and especially their application. When you read an editorial in the newspaper, you will see that there is good English and how they are using the English. Though the English is very simple, yes, yet the English is very strongly bound over there. The English is having a strong content. The content is strong, the writing is very strong, yet it is very simple to understand. They are not using anything which is which is beyond our understanding. No, even when we read the headlines, that catches our attention is that which catches our attention. We do not it is very easy language. So language is easy, but what is important is the application. When we understand, when we apply the language well, when we apply the words well, that is the only time when our English is proper. So it is very important for us to know that not only vocabulary, spelling, grammar is useful only when you apply them. Without its application, it becomes very difficult for you to understand when you are using in a language. Suppose you have written many words, you have read the newspaper, and after reading the newspaper, what you have done, you have made a dictionary, made a list of words, and and you think that okay, now I'm going to use these words, but suddenly when you start speaking, what happens? While speaking randomly or while speaking, we have to use our mind very quickly. So when we are speaking, we generally forget all the words. So because why do we forget? Because we have not practiced it. We have just read the words as words. We have not used the words in application. Using the words in application is very, very different. And then also you don't form new words. What are forming new words? You have formation of new words which is easily known as compound words. Like you have classmate, classroom, desktop. So these are two words. These are two different types of words and they are together formed to make one word. So these are compound words. Many times we write compound sentences but we do not know how to use those compound sentences. Now, which when it comes these, we do not know that these are known as compound words. When two individual words are taken and made into one single word, then those are known as compound words. Next, what we come to know is, why do we write different types of sentences? Why are we writing different types of sentences? We learn negative, positive sentence, affirmative sentence, negative sentence, passive voice, active voice. Then we have compound, complex, and simple sentence. Now, the basic reason behind this studying a transformation of sentence, it is actually basically known as transformation of sentence. Why? Because when we are writing a sentence, writing one sentence, writing everything in one particular way cannot make the writing interesting. But in one paragraph, if you are writing the sentences, well and good, but if you are transforming the sentences also, then it helps you in what? It helps you to change, it helps you to make the writing very interesting, because one sentence you are changing the form. So when you are changing the form in the sentence, what happens is that the writing becomes interesting. Maybe if you are writing using complex sentences or using phrases in between, or you are using idioms in between, this creates a different level of interest. So then also the writing becomes a lot more interesting. So it is very important that whenever you are writing, you make the correct application of language. You make the correct format of language. Now I'll give you an example of letter writing. Now, letter is a written form of writing. Now, when we are writing a letter, what happens is that when we are writing a letter, we forget the format. We make mistakes in writing the date. We make mistakes in writing the address. We make mistakes in writing the subject. Subject should be small. Everything should be written in left hand side. But what happens? We fail to write it in a correct way. So that is how a formal letter, many a times while writing a formal letter or a formal report, these are all business types. So we put too much of application in it, we put too much of input in it, but all these letters are supposed to be short, precise, and it should not have many things in it. But while we are writing the letter, either we write wrong English or we have a tendency of putting every detail in that letter, when a formal letter does not require so much details in it. So it is very important that when you are writing letters, you're writing a paragraph, you use the correct way. Writing a report is different, writing a letter is different, but both are written application in business English. But when you are using those letters or those application, what you do, you have to think properly, because in a report you can expand your language, but in a formal letter you cannot expand your language too much. You have to keep it very, very short and crisp. You cannot just keep on expanding. If you expand too much, what will happen? People are going to fail to understand, because nobody has time to read a letter so long. Because in business we do not write personal letter, we write business letters which generally have order, inquiry, then information, reply, complaint. So over here you do not need excessive details in writing. So over here nobody needs an excessive report, they just want everything to the point. But suppose you have gone to some place, you have visited a particular area, you have visited a particular place. So when you have visited a particular place and you are going to write a report on it, of course that is the time people are more interested in knowing your experience. So that is what the people have told. So that is where you use expansion language, you use everything in detail. So writing application, but different form of application has different forms of writing. So that is what we should keep in mind. If we mix it up, it becomes very in our English with our contact with business English becomes very difficult. Next is we told that your pronunciation, your vocabulary should all be there properly. Otherwise, we have a tendency to create a chaos in writing also, and reading also. Now, business English wants us that we meet a lot of variety of people. When you are doing business, it is like a business communication we do, like communication during business affairs. So what are the basic things that we need? Now, your English should also have concreteness in it. It should be concrete, it should be precise, because businessmen with whom you are contacting is not there to sit and read your story. It is not a informal way of talking, it is just a formal way of interacting. So it is such that you do not need to interact formally, you need to interact in a very positive manner. Your talking should be very precise. It should be concrete. It should not have any unwanted thing in it. It should have completeness. You should complete your writing. You should complete your reading. You should complete whatever is related to your business. You cannot keep your letters, your reports, anything incomplete. So when you are doing business communication, you should, or when you are using English for business, you should keep in mind completeness, concreteness. Okay, and the best part of it is you should put a bit of courtesy in it, because when you are writing, you should show that there is courtesy in your writing. It is not that you don't have any courtesy at all in your writing. There should be a lot of courtesy, humbleness in your writing. If it does not have any type of humbleness, it is many times considered as a rude type of communication. So you should keep in mind that a communication should never be rude. Instead, it should be humble, and you should also follow a pattern of communication which is very smooth flowing and understandable by the receiver. So the sender should put the person who is speaking should put the words and languages, everything properly. Then only what happens, then only the person in front helps you to understand. Now, in English, you should use new words, form new bases of your words, and you should also form words which are which are useful for business. Like scientifically, there are certain, in science, there are certain words used by scientists. Doctors use certain words. The lawyers, they use particular words. But what happens is that when it comes to business, you also have certain words that are only related to business, that scientists or lawyers or any other people cannot use it. So when you are using that English for business, you should see that it is related to your business. Now you don't put order, inquiry, complaint and adjustment letter for scientific use or for legal use. You put these words formally, especially for business use. So you should use languages that are very closely related to business, shareholders, consumer, clients, customers. So these are languages that we use in our. You should always have thanks, regards, thanking you, regards to you. So all these things are like having a very important role to play in business English. You just can't make English use English with any technical jargons, because it may become very difficult for us to use that particular language. So when we are using business English, you should know that the language should be strong, and you should have a strong hold of the language. Keep in mind the way you are pronouncing your thing, and basic is that you need a lot of practice. We should keep practice speaking English and writing English. Only it is very simple thing that only when we are using our application of writing and reading, and also listening comes afterwards, because when we pronounce wrong, only when we are ourselves learned, then only we come out with the mistakes, then only we come to know where our mistakes are coming. Otherwise we do not find any type of mistakes. So it is very important that you read and write, and you practice your English, increase your vocabulary, read newspaper, and also develop your language by others. You understand the phonics, then and put is implication also, but using phonics is just like the baseline of using your language. So it is just the base of you developing your language, or it is just the base of putting forward your language. So overall, you should learn your especially write your English well. You should use the different types of sentences. You should know your grammar. You should also, to make the writing interesting, you should make the phrases, learn the phrases, learn certain phrases which are easy for you to remember, learn certain idioms which are for you to remember also, and that should be related to business. If it is not related to business, it may create a question in the mind of the sender, question in the mind of the receiver. So to just in short that so all the points are given to you or being told to you, that how you can develop your business English when you move forward, or when you are about to step into the world of work, or when you are going to step into your job world. You know how you are going to practice it. Thank you.